So those were the days.
Oh,
I was
I'm
a little
telling
younger. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, Kenny,
There
I've been in ministry for 35 years, so that's where all this went. It's gone now, So.
Well, I got some too. Mine used to be really long and curly. Yeah,
there you go.
Days, right? Well, this hairstyle suits me for what I'm doing now, right now. So.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine suits for being old. That's me being an old man.
Correct. I'll join you. I will join you. All right.
Yeah,
we ready?
When did I get into ministry? 1980.
Wow.
Yeah,
there you go.
Wow,
me
that's
really
amazing.
Old,
No,
I love
no.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Steve, we're live whenever you want to start.
All right, here we go. Let's get the intro in.
Hi, this is Jack Hughes of Wang Chung, and you're listening to the DND Dynamite 80s podcast show with your hosts DC and D8.
Live from Nashville, Tennessee, you are listening to the D&D Dynamite 80s podcast with your hosts, DC and DH. So, guys, and the Rock and Rev, take it away.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
Welcome in. Another episode of D&D Dynamite 80s. I'm DH.
I am DC.
And
Along
we're
with
here- we got the Rock and Roll Reverend
Rock and Rev.
and the Rock and Rev tonight. So
Rock and
we're
Rev and
covering
Rock and
on
Roll
both
Rev.
ends.
Yes. Hello,
Hey.
brothers. How are
Yeah.
you?
Hey,
doing
brother,
fine,
how are you
man.
tonight? Yes, we are excited. DC, I'm not even going to ask because I don't even care how your week's been, man. I'm so excited to get this show started.
Hey,
I'm not
when
even
you're on
gonna fake it.
vacation, all is well.
Hey, I'm not even going to fake like I care this week. Okay,
Right.
so we're just going to skip that.
That's right.
I'm going
That's
to let
right.
you go ahead and do the introductions. But
No,
man, I'll tell you what. this
I'm
is
excited
gonna
about
be
this one, brother.
Yes.
Absolutely. We are honored to have studio engineer, musician, singer, and songwriter Kenny Metcalf with us. Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to be on your show. Thanks for
Well,
having
we
me.
appreciate you taking some time with us.
Yes.
Gotta ask this first,
well,
and you
wait a
already
minute.
kind of.
DC, before you do, you
Hey.
forgot somebody down there. You forgot our brother over here. You didn't.
Well,
introduce-
I mentioned him in the intro, but Brady, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
I've had him. We've been talking about him a little bit already.
Kenny,
So, sorry.
As you can tell, this is a highly organized,
Yeah,
top-quality
it's
show.
a top quality show.
Okay, hang on just for a second. Okay, since you guys got all these guitars in the background, I'm going to ask my granddaughter, Violet, would you do me a favor and go get me the Les Paul that's right in my room on the
amazing.
floor?
Oh my gosh!
Hallelujah.
That one, please. Thank you. No, I got to have a guitar behind me.
Hey,
you guys all got guitars by you.
You have a gold record behind you right
Yeah,
there. that I
yeah,
see
we
as
don't-
Well.
I can't.
I have one of those
I've got a
too.
Roy band. I got a Roy band
Yeah.
record behind me.
Okay, well, wait. Okay, so I can't get this thing. It's like locked to my piano, and I can't get it to move. Here we go. Hang on. There we go. There's
Oh, wow,
oh,
look.
my,
Wow.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Wow.
Those are from my days of.
Hey,
well,
we're
we'll
not-
talk about.
we're
later,
not
okay?
worthy.
We're not
We're not
worthy. No.
I didn't get the thing. Okay, so now a guitar behind me. Okay, so here you
Oh
go.
wow.
Oh, there you
I have it the
go.
right way.
That's
It's upside down. There we go.
Oh,
That
Oh,
is-
fantastic.
oh, man.
Beautiful.
Here, I'll just put
Yes.
that thing right here where it can sit, and it's a little lower than what you can see, but it's there.
oh, look
If I
at
can
that
keep it-
artwork.
See if I
on
can
that.
keep it from
Wow.
falling over.
Can you
I
tell
don't
me?
know.
Tell us a little bit about that artwork that's on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't create the original artwork, but I did the artwork on the guitar with a friend. His name is Ray Edwards, and he went on to do a lot of guitars for a lot of famous people in Fender Custom Shop, and now he's working with another company. And
Oh,
but I mean, between the two of us, we did this, and then Mitch
Wow.
Lanzini of the famed Overhauling TV show, he did. When we got the artwork all put in place, he re-clear coated the guitar and sealed it in for us. He does that on all my guitars.
oh,
So I went
Wow.
to school with Mitch, and we were in bands together. And he became a famous painter, and I just became a piano player.
Speaking of piano players,
Just
there's
a piano
also,
player, yeah.
Just a
Just
piano player.
right over your shoulder there's looks like some Elton John bobbleheads with a piano. Those are cool as well. You guys see those right over your
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do
I'm
see
gonna
him.
That
keep
is
this guitar
awesome.
from falling. There we go. But yeah. Well, Ray Edwards, who did the guitar for me, he actually he gave me this one.
Oh,
For
how
my,
cool.
Wow. That is cool.
What was
Wow.
it? 65th birthday.
Wow. That is
Time
cool.
flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And everybody needs more
Gotta have more
cowbell.
More cowbell.
More
Absolutely.
cowbell.
Anyways, gotta have that around. And
Gotta have more cowbell.
Oh, absolutely.
well, I've officially blown the first 5 minutes of your show. So.
Hey,
No, that's fantastic.
Incredible.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
that is our show.
That is our show.
That's amazing.
Now, I've got to ask, when did you start out the passion for the music, knowing that's what you wanted to do for a living? How long have you done this thing? Go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, since I was 5. When the Beatles came out in 1964, so maybe I was 6 years old at the time. But whenever it was when they went on the Ed Sullivan Show, I was up late that night watching it, because when you're little, 8 o'clock at night is late.
Yeah.
So,
or when you're old, either way.
Or when you get old too.
Yeah, and then you get older, and that's the same bedtime.
Yeah.
You appreciate it.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So no, I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show and the Beatles, and I just was like, that's it. I want to be a musician. But I also came from a long line of musicians as well. My cousins were musicians. My mother actually had it in her blood. My grandmother on my dad's side played music a little bit. But on my mother's side, her uncle, Frank Tukach, he toured with Tommy Dorsey and Benny Goodman and those guys.
Wow.
Back in the day, and so when they come to the West Coast or the West side of the United States, they would pick up their orchestra, because they didn't take a full band everywhere they went. And so they would pick up their players as they went. And so he got picked up when they, hit the West side of the United States, and he would play with them. And so I have that heritage of musicians in my, and then my cousins who are older than me, they were playing in rock bands. And so I wanted to be a musician since I was 5, and started playing drums when I was 6. And I played until my freshman year in high school, and I learned to read music, play jazz charts, and could do all that. And then somebody came into drama room in high school when I was a freshman in 1973. Benny and the Jets was #1 on the charts, and this guy walks in. He's a junior classmate, and he starts going. And when he did that, all the girls got up and they went around the piano and they started singing with him. Now, keep in mind, in 1973, that was #1 on the charts, and Elton was the biggest thing next to sliced bread.
Right.
And so I looked at my buddy who was sitting next to me, Michael Ferlita, and I said, I've never had that effect on a girl while playing drums, because you can't serenade a girl over a drum set. And so I'm sitting in the very house where my mother had an upright. Actually used to be right here where all this cabinetry is, because this is all new. But I grew up in this house, and I came home from school and I taught myself to play piano. So everything that I play, I'm self-taught.
Wow.
I did teach myself after about 5 or 6 years. I taught myself to start reading chords, because I just had that gift, and I could hear things and I could play it, but I didn't know what key people were in. And so I'd be jamming with guys, and they're going to go, we're going to do this in C. And I was like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Or they changing chords, or we're going to go up this, and it was like, I didn't know this thing, because I just learned to play. And so I'm self-taught. I did teach myself to read chords at that point after about 5 or 7 years, because I was going to be playing with another band down the road that was touring. So I wanted to make sure I was up on my game. And so I taught myself what chords were in around 1982, I think, And so I
Wow.
taught myself that. So by the time 85 hit and I started touring, or late 84, that's when I knew what I was playing. But I still had chord charts like written on everything, and the rest of everything was in my head. So that's still how I play. I mean, I walk on stage today. I don't have any charts in front of me. I've learned the material, and it's all in here.
Yeah.
So, but anyways,
Wow.
but not to cut into anything you might have asked me.
No,
Oh,
no,
the
you're not
show's
cutting
over.
in
Well, hey, I
anything.
hope we had a great time, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night. Oh,
What you
man.
got, Brady?
What? Tell me about your coming to faith in Christ, and was that younger for your life? Later on?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, my experiences with Christ, I had a lot of them when I was a young man. Just simple things, but I mean, I always believed in Jesus. I went to a Lutheran church as a kid, and I think that's just like a half step from the Catholic Church. The things were pretty much the same. But I went to, I remember I went outside and the sun was going down, and my mother gave me the keys to the house to go lock the garage. And I was outside and the sun started going down. I'd just been a kid and throwing the keys up in the air. And then I'd see them and I'd wait and I'd catch them. And then I'd throw them up again. And I just kept doing that. And then finally I threw them up and they never came down. And I looked everywhere. And I mean, at dusk, there's no light shining. It's still got light, but it's not enough for glistening or anything.
Right.
Right.
And I just remember I was going to get my butt beat by my dad, when he got home. He just had a short temper. And so I cried out to God and I said, God, you got to help me find these keys. Now, that's just the faith of a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. An instant later, I turned and they were in the grass where I had looked many times, didn't see them, but all of a sudden they're shining. So I found the keys. So that was one instance.
Wow.
Another one was going to a vacation Bible school thing as a kid. I got invited to one for some friends at their church. And they said, anybody want to accept Christ, come on down. And so I went down and, the lady put her hand on me to pray for me and I was gone. And all of a sudden I came to, and she was panicked because, it's a fundamentalist church and they didn't know what happened to me. And I didn't know what happened to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, I started to see, I had an experience with something happened. And I used to see all kinds of things in the spirit when I was a kid. I really did. I mean, I saw stuff happening, parties going on when there weren't parties going on, and glasses clanking, and so just different things. And I had to sleep at the foot of my parents' bed for a few years.
Was music a part of your church upbringing also?
You know what? Just I was the loudest kid singing in the choir.
I'm saying,
shut me up. I love to sing. My mother said at one point in my life, because every night I would go she'd see me and she'd be in the kitchen, which is here, and she'd be looking out the other window and into the patio, and I'd be up either on a soapbox or on a tree or something, tree stump. And I'd be singing every night, a million stars in the sky. And I'd have my arms up like I was singing before thousands of people. My mother, she'd be watching me while I cook or while she cooked. And she would just say, you're either going to grow up and be a preacher or you're going to grow up and be an entertainer. And I grew up to be both at one point.
God.
That's something.
And
I think Kenny's the only human being on the planet that he and I have that same thing that everybody said about us. You're either going to be a preacher, or my grandparents would say you're either going to be a preacher, a politician, or an entertainer. And I ain't ran for office yet because I'm scared too.
Well, you brought in the politics side of things, a preacher of politics or whatever. But in my high school yearbook, when it says when I graduated, what do you want to aspire to be? And I said, I want to be the president of the United States and create my own conspiracy. That was 1977. But I didn't go that route. I'm thankful I didn't.
Especially in
it's really in my
77.
yearbook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my
Right.
gosh. Wow.
What
Awesome.
Kenny, one
But
of the things
I did a few years later though. I went to my cousin's concert my senior year in high school. It was Christmas time, and it was a point of rededicating my life to Christ. And this was back at Maranatha at Chuck Smith's church in Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so my cousin's band was playing, and they gave an altar call, and I was the only one who stood up in the whole place and accepted Christ. And so that pretty much that was a radical transformation. And in 1980, solid turnaround in my life, because my rock band wasn't going anywhere and doing all the wrong things and making all the wrong mistakes, and drugs got involved and things like that. And anyways, in 1979 of November, I went into a church. Friend invited me, and I walked into the church, and they had choir, full band, everything. I was like, oh, this is nice, you know. But the power God hit me, and I was sitting in the back row, knocked me out of my seat onto the floor. And for the next hour, I shook. And when I got up, I was delivered from all drugs and all everything. And I'd never been the same after that. And then it was like prophesied over me I'd be an evangelist, and carried that with me my life now.
And I think that's going to kind of go into the answer that I was going to ask Kenny, is because one of the things, you know, I was the hair metal guy back in the 80s. I really enjoyed that. And when Stryper come along, it was so refreshing to hear the Christian music, but kind of tailored to a different genre that normally you wouldn't hear that in. So I was going to kind of ask, how did you guys come up with that, and how did that come together? Because for me, that was kind of a game changer.
Well, I was involved with Stryper before they were Stryper, because I live in La Mirada, California, and they have a big performing arts theater that they had just built, and they had a talent show in 1977 to open up the theater. They wanted the city to come and see it, so they held a talent show where everybody had their kids involved. And so I auditioned my band to be on, because it's 1,200 seater, and I'm 18 years old. And so anyways, there was another band that I had auditioned to play, and it was Robert Sweet and the Firestorm Band. And so we met that night. I took third place for the talent show, and I beat the Sweet Brothers, but they beat me because they went on to be Stryper a few years later. But they ended up moving in on my block where I live. And so they saw me going through all the stuff. They were playing Gazzari's, the Roxy, the Whiskey, all these places. And my band, we were writing original music too, but we were playing private events, like for the Crazy Lunatic Society. You know, we played at the La Mirada Theater a couple times. We did that, but while we were doing that, they were playing Gazzari's and stuff on the Sunset Strip, and but they were Rocks, and then they had to change their name, so they became Rocks Regime. And so anyways, you know, I'd see them, and they were all, you know, in their spandex and stuff back then, and they noticed a change in me, and something had happened. And so anyways, I was talking to their mom, and I told her how you know, I had given my heart and my life back to Christ. And so she would tell me, go in and share that with the guys. And so I would go in, and it was just Robert and Michael and different bandmates, because they were Rock's Regime. They weren't Stryper yet. Oz Fox and Timothy Gaines weren't in the band yet. And so anyways, I would go in and I would just share with them. And then God started giving me things for them. I mean, prophetic words for them. And those words, actually, all of them came to pass. Nothing fell to the ground of any of the things. And so God would start to, he'd give me a word, and until I delivered it, it was like a burden on me. I mean, it burdened me, and there was nothing I could do about that. And so when I would deliver the word, it would lift. And so that's how I knew I was hearing from God, because of that. And so anyways, but it still had to see if it would actually come to pass. And but it did. And one of the things that, and while that was happening, I was actually working at a place. My firstborn daughter was on her way, and So anyways, I needed a job, and I got a job at an auto parts store, which was next to this place. And it wasn't a store, it was a warehouse, wholesale. And so I was a sales rep for them. And the guy working in that place next door was Oz Fox. And so Ozzy was, I would share a little with him. And one day he told me, he goes, "Hey, I'm going to audition for these brothers that I know, and for their band." And so anyways, I saw him the next day. I go, "How'd the audition go?" He goes, "I'm in the band." Well, he had known the two brothers for years. They went to high school with him. And it was the Sweet Brothers. And so Oz Fox started playing with Rock's Regime. Yeah. And so then one day I walked in, and they were having rehearsal, and Oz goes, "You know them?" I go, I didn't know they all knew each other. And so for the next year, I was witnessing to them, and I would share what God put on my heart.
Wow.
And so a year went by, and at the end of the year, they were just kind of him and Han, and, still watching Jimmy Swaggart every Sunday on TV as a family. And so God gave me a word for him and said, "You're for me or you're against me. Choose this day who you're going to serve." So I went in and I delivered that word, and the three of them knelt down and asked Christ into their heart. And we had a Bible study. And then shortly after that, Timothy Gaines, he had given his heart to the Lord through a guy named Michael Guido was praying for him, who was his best friend. And Michael Guido comes into the picture, and they started holding Bible studies at the Sweets house in the garage, which is 6 houses down from where I live right now. And so anyways, so that whole thing transpired. But I remember telling them, you guys are just a band, but and a great band. But if you guys give your heart to the Lord, the Spirit of God will be behind what you do, and people will go away changed. If not, they're still going to go away thinking you're great.
That's right.
But you have a chance to change people's lives. And so that word actually happened, and everything that I had ever spoken over their life happened. I mean, and it took off from the time they knelt down and prayed. Everything fell into place. I remember the day, Robert changed the name to Striper, and he had it painted on the wall, their very first logo, and had it painted on the wall. And I was in the garage with Robert, the rehearsal studio, and he's looking up at the wall, and he's pointing it to it, and he's going letter by letter, and he goes, "Salvation through redemption, yielding peace, encouragement, and righteousness." He got the acronym just like that.
Yeah.
And that became their acronym and they didn't have Isaiah 53:5. That came even later. I think Guido had something to do with that. I'm not sure, but anyways, so it was really exciting times, and a couple of years went by, and then all of a sudden, they're going to do their first U.S. tour with, record album, and Robert Sweet was asking me to be the keyboard player for the band, and because Timothy Gaines was playing the keys, a little bit, and then he'd get away from them and play bass, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And so Robert just says, "I really believe God wants you to go on the road." And so anyways, I turned him down. And then I went home and I told my wife, she goes, "You go back there and tell him you'll do it." So, but I had 10 major things that said I can't go. And every one of them fell aside. And the last one was my dad, who had put me in business to make neon signs. And he had put a lot of his living expense into putting me into business, sending me to a trade school to learn how to bend neon. And so anyways, how am I going to tell Dad I got to go on the road? But my dad was building their signs for their show.
Wow.
So he had seen when their first record came out and everything else. So he believed in them, and he believed what they were doing was a good thing. So my dad told me to go. So I did the first tour, which was 10 weeks. So 2.5 months on the road. I went, very first show, I went from, we played at the Pacific Amphitheater, Orange County, and Great White opened up for us. And then we toured, and when we got done with that tour on December 13th, I remember it all, 1985, we played at the Universal Amphitheater, which is no longer there, but it was indoors, and that was a great show. And I got invited to go on the next tour, and I think we left. Let's see, it ended in late May, June, I think. So it was about March, I think, I started the next tour, and I was gone for 10 weeks. And from the time I left, I just missed my family. And I'm a family man. And so I really didn't want to go on the second tour. I wanted to be home with my family, but I just was like, okay, God, if that's what you want to do, then let's do it. And so I went out, but that whole time I was just saying, God, would you get me out of this? I'd really like to go home. I'd rather, not go out on another tour. But if that's what you want from me, I will do it again. And so I told I had like permission by the end. I had peace in my spirit to tell the guys, hey, I don't want to go out again. I'm going to stay home with my kids, because I have 20 weeks that I have no recollection of them growing up because I wasn't there. And so I can never get that back. Right. So it was a heavy price, and I didn't like paying it, but I paid. Right. And but I saw miracles upon miracles happen when I was touring with them. Lots of stuff. I was a resident evangelist. So it was a really good time. I'm glad I got to be a part of that in my history. And then I got off the road and waited for my kids to grow up. And then I was going to go out again. And one of the things was I was hoping that someday my kids would sing with me. And they literally do.
Well, that's something I was
speaking
actually
of that,
going to ask.
Speaking of that, folks, this is Kenny Metcalf that we have on with us tonight. And DH, we haven't had this before, where we had a father and daughter interviewed back to back.
Yes.
Wow.
We had his daughter last week, Desi, was on talking about her great band that she's a part of. We had just an amazing time talking with her. Congratulations. You guys have made history for us.
Yes.
Having a daughter and a father back to back for interviews. That's pretty cool.
Wait until you bring my other daughter on.
There you go.
Business. And she's Kiki D in the band. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, they all sing. And then the grandkids, every one of them, songbirds. They all have good pitch. They can play instruments. They're learning instruments.
Amazing.
They love music. And when my daughters grew up with an endless parade of musicians coming through the house at my house when they were growing up. And now my grandkids, it's the same thing, an endless parade of musicians. So when these professional musicians all show up and they start playing, my grandkids just know them as that's Larry, that's these guys, that's this guy. And they just grab instruments and they start playing them right along with us. You know, and I think it's the greatest thing.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is so awesome. Yeah. Now, Kenny, this is going to lead to one of the most important questions of the night. Okay. Now, this question,
Brady already knows what's coming.
Now, stay with me. Just stay with me. Just stay with me for just a little while. Just stay with me, because DC always says I cheat at this. He has this infatuation that I always cheat when we do this part. And I don't know where he gets it from, but he has an infatuation that I always cheat. But last week, he actually won one, and he wore it well. You wore it well, DC. You wear it well. So I just want to say that, because some guys have all the luck, and I think it was luck.
Right.
But what we're going to do is
Brady's killing me.
We're going to give you two artists, random artists. You don't know who they are, but DC says I always give hints, and I never do. It's just because I'm forever young. And DC, did I tell you, I was outside today and it was almost 100 degrees, and man, my legs
Something about your legs,
my legs were hot, man. I had hot legs today. So just stay with me.
You need to sing him some sad songs.
Yeah. So DC's going to give you two artists. He always says I cheat, and what happens is you get to pick whichever one of our artists picks. The other one has to buy breakfast at Waffle House on Friday morning when we do our post conference. So, like I said, people get ready, because he's going to say I'm trying to cheat. People get ready.
Right. We got you.
So, he's going to try to say I cheat on this, but I'm going to let him tell you the artist.
Kenny, it's a decision between obviously Rod Stewart or Billy Joel.
Oh, but I get to pick which one I like better, or
you
what?
get to pick which one you like better.
Oh, well, let's see.
Now, Kenny,
give me something. Yeah.
Yeah, Billy Joel.
That's 2 weeks in a row.
Well, Kenny, it was nice having you on the show. Thank you.
I made him buy breakfast. Now he's going to kick me out because I picked the wrong guy.
I know. I mean, but
sad songs they say.
Speaking of that, Kenny, if you would please give us a little bit of a couple or three or whatever you want to do, a little mirage of different songs there for us. Show us your talent there for everybody.
Okay. This one's a deep cut. This is a deep cut.
I like them.
Hey, that's my favorite too.
She packed my bags last night, pre-flight.
Wow.
0 hour, 9 a.m.
Amazing.
And I'm gonna be high as a cat by down. Oh, there you go.
All right.
Amazing. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's part of what I get to do right
now. So talk to us a minute about that. How the Elton experience came about for you.
Well, shoot, this is like, well, I'm trying to think. I've been on the road as Elton for 16 years now.
Wow.
Let's see, in 2009. Yeah, we started the show in 2009, but before that, there was a prophetic word over my life, and this is like 30 years ago at least now, and where I was likened unto Job. And have you considered my servant Kenny? And it was like, oh my gosh, I know there's only one other guy in the Bible that God had boasted over like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. Don't take this wrong. But it was like when I had that word, my heart dropped, and it was like, because I knew the scriptures and stuff, and it was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And so my pastor had told me that, when you get a prophetic word or something, if you don't really understand it or you don't agree with it, put it on a shelf. Yeah. But if it's God, there's no stopping it. It will happen. And so, anyways, so I got that word, and but also that I would play on the stages before thousands, and but not in that same prophetic word, not because I knew that I'd done it with Stryper, but not with Stryper. This was going to become something completely different that I would get to do, and I would get to play on stages and be a headliner. And so anyways, but in order for that to happen, I had to die. I literally had to die. And so about 15 years or so went by, and all of a sudden I lost my business, and a few other tragedies happened in the family, and then I lost my home, and then the next thing was that my body was stricken with wounds inside and out for a disease there was no cure for, called pemphigus vulgaris, and I would wish it on nobody. It was the most painful thing. Your skin peels off, you get blisters, and they come out of nowhere, and but once they're there, they don't go away, and they spread and they get bigger to where you're just, the people that most people that when they got pemphigus, they would die in a bathtub because you're bleeding to death, and there's no place, you can't wear clothes, because just this little movement of me doing this, it would tear my skin off because my skin would stick to my clothes. Wow.
I saw the pictures, some pictures online of your back and the top of your head, and the article that I was reading equated Job with the boils on his body in the Bible to what you were going through, and I saw your back, and it was amazing. I mean, y'all guys, it was covered in these.
Yes,
they were this big around, weren't they, Kenny? I mean, just all over.
They were huge. Oh yeah, no, and it was on my head. It was everywhere on my body, in my mouth, in my nose. Swallowing water was like drinking broken glass. And I mean, I asked God to kill me 3 times. It was that bad. And but each time I said, "Nevertheless, not my will, yours be done." I really said that, and then I'd lay on the bathroom floor and I'd cry because I was in pain, and the medications that I had weren't helping, weren't doing anything. And so finally, it took me to death's door, and on February 6th of 2006, my wife rolled me into the hospital because the night before, my sister-in-law she had ran into a nurse, and the nurse said, "We helped somebody with pemphigus. Bring him in to the ICU burn unit. Bring him in tomorrow." And so, anyways, in fact, a week before that happened, David Safiro from Bloodgood, I think it was Bloodgood that he played with, he came out. He flew out from Nashville to pray for me, because God told him to come out and pray for me, and he was going to heal me. Well, the healing didn't happen overnight. The healing was 11 years in the process, and IV treatments. But a week later, it landed me in the hospital after he prayed for me. And as my wife was rolling me down the hallway in a wheelchair, she pushing me, and she says, "You're not leaving me yet." And when she did that, power of the spoken word, I honestly believe that, because my eyes were rolling back in my head and I was fading. I had no life left into me at all. So it wasn't that I didn't have faith in God. I would just went, well, maybe those prophetic words over my life were just somebody else's words, and they weren't yours. I'm okay with that. And so I was ready to meet my Father, and leave everything behind, everyone that I loved, because it was that painful, and I had no energy left in me. And when that happened, she says, "You're not leaving me." I started to revive. The doctors saw that happen. And then what they started giving me started helping me. And 3 weeks later, I got out of the hospital, but I was on 65 or 85 milligrams of prednisone every day for years. And I mean, my hands just shook like this all the time. And prednisone is damaging to your body. It's not good for you. It's an immunosuppressant. And but I mean, I was on heavy IV treatments for 11 years. And then they took me off of everything. They took me off of everything. I didn't need it anymore. And doctor says, "I believe you're cured." Well, I'm healed. That's the honest truth. I'm healed. And anyways, what led me into this was 3 years out of the hospital. I still was, I hadn't begun the IV treatment. I mean, I was doing IV treatments, but my ankles were like that big. And, to walk down the driveway, which was 50 feet, and to get back and turn around and come back up, I would be in bed for a week. I was that exhausted. And so, and after 3 years, my friend said, because I still had muscle atrophy and stuff, he says, he goes, "You always kind of sounded like Elton." He said, "I bet if you studied his voice and his music, you could make a living again, because tribute bands are playing the kind of venues you played when you toured with Stryper. I mean, they're playing arenas and stuff."
Yes.
And so I said, well, let me give it a try. And I sat down and I recorded "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." I had a full studio in my house. And so I recorded "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." And my wife came home. She goes, "Is that you or is that Elton?" Because I'd recorded the drums. I played everything on the keyboards, and I engineered it, and I mixed it to sound like the album. And so I said, well, let's give it a try. And so then I sat down at the piano and just said, hey, you know what? I said, God, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best at it in the world. And I want to make people happy. I want to give people hope in their lives, and but I don't ever want to walk on stage without you, because he's the one that brings hope. And so that's what I left that at. And I felt peace about doing it. And 5 years later, I was invited by Mark Cuban and Ryan Seacrest through their producer, Katie Darrell, to be on season 1 of the world's greatest tribute band. And they gave me a 1 hour live national broadcast. And it wasn't a self-proclamation, I am the greatest. They gave me a TV show that was live, and Elton John's original guitarist, Caleb Quaye, joined us to close that show that night. 40 million viewers. And so anyways, that launched us, got us out of California. But, now we've toured, and we're all over the country. We go all over the place. We've been to England. Crazy thing. I'm in Westminster Abbey in the gift shop, and I'm buying something. And a lady comes up to me. She goes, "Excuse me, are you Kenny Metcalf, the Elton John tribute?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "I follow you."
Wow.
That's the craziest thing. That really happened.
Wow.
But anyways, so, so we set out to play and do it. It's musical theater, and that's everything that I wanted to do since I was a kid. because it's being the orchestra, but it's acting. It's a musical in it. And every time we walk on stage, we recreate a live concert that Elton did. But when I walk on, I'm not third person, I'm first person. So I walk on, I have to be British, I have to sound like him, I have to be in character, in costume. The rest of the band, they all have the wigs and the thing, and they look like the guys they're portraying. And so it's a show, but it's no different than going to a performing arts theater and watching the Buddy Holly story, a musical, you know, and that's what we do. But a lot of people find joy with what we do, and it's just awesome. It's very exciting, and I get to touch people's lives one-on-one. But the most interesting thing is people look me up, and my whole story is on the internet.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why I treated them like I did. You know, when my kids were little, there was two profound things that I told them. My hands are God's hands extended. So I taught them that, and being a youth pastor, I taught that to the kids so that they understood, you know, the embodiment of who God is lives inside you. So your hands are his hands extended. Yeah. And so that was one of the things. And what was the other thing? It just slipped my mind. There were two profound things. Well, one of them is, God's no respecter of persons. That was a third one. I'm stuck in between the other two. But anyways, you know, the point is that I never walk on stage without God, and to see him touch people's lives, you know, without having to preach at them. And that was the second profound thing, was in all you're doing, in all that you are, in all that you do with your life, be a witness wherever you go. And only as a last resort, only if you must, open your mouth. And so that is something that I learned from touring with Stryper, because those guys, they loved the unlovely. They loved the people that the church hated.
Yeah.
The church came and protested Stryper back then.
Of course.
You know, the Stryper would send me out to be their evangelist, to go out and talk to the media. Why is the church here? I don't know. They weren't here last week when AC/DC played the same arena, but they're here to protest us. And Stryper was bringing them, you know, the gospel through their music. So anyways, I learned how to love people, because the road crew were just everyday people. And so how you want to be treated is how we treat people. So when I walk into a venue with my band, I don't walk in, I'm not Elton, I'm Kenny Metcalf. I have a show to do, and I appreciate everybody from the sound crew to the people that are bringing us food, to the, you know, the stage crew, you know, everything about that place. Everybody, you know, their jobs are important, and everybody makes everything work. There's nobody lesser, and my band has that attitude. So when we go in, we're not walking in as a great, big, wonderful anything. And so we appreciate what we get to do. And that has been how we treat people. And so anyways, you know, I just really believe that how you love people makes a difference. Now, when I get done with my show and I get to the last song, I will share what I went through in about a minute's time. And I just share it so people understand miracles still happen. And everybody that walks in that place needs a miracle from some time or another. But everybody has pain, and pain is pain. It doesn't matter if it's a blister or 1,000 blisters. Pain is pain, and it hurts. And to have to give somebody hope, and that's what I do when I share my story, is that I am cured. I'm healed. It was a miracle. And you're not allowed to only have one. Ask for as many as you need. And I share that. And I leave it at that. And let God touch their lives, because that's one thing as an evangelist. I learned that I've never changed anybody. I've never, nobody got saved because of me, because all glory goes to God. He's the one that draws people. We water, but he draws. He, you know, some plant, some sow, some water, but he reaps the harvest. He's the one that did it. The reason Stryper got saved isn't because of me. I was a vessel that he used to deliver a message, you know, but it was there, you know, it was him drawing them. And so it's the same thing. I can't change my own heart. I have to drop to my knees to get that thing to change. So he's back in the seat again. And so that's where I started to understand, people can, Jesus can reveal himself to anybody, but I have to be a vessel of love. And that's, and when people come up and they say, I know your story. I know you. I know about you. And, would you pray for me? Well, I have that one-on-one. There's other times there's one-on-one with people, but most of the time I just share my story and I just tell them, never give up hope. And, the fact is, when I walk on stage, God goes before me. So he's there. So what they're feeling is him. That's going to make a lot of people mad. It's the honest truth.
It is.
It is the truth.
So I don't have to go out and shove Jesus down their throat. He shows up and let him touch their lives. If they come up and they don't know why they're feeling what they're feeling and they ask me, I can get more point blank with them. But I go out and I take pictures with everybody after every show, unless there's some circumstance that the band is saying, we've got to go. And they're tearing down everything else for me. But I will go out and I will take pictures and I will smile with everybody. And I will take it to the last person every time, because I'm touching lives.
That's right.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
Wow. Hey, Kenny, it's been an honor.
Wow.
And it's been a blessing to meet you.
Yes.
And man, I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Can you, before we wrap this up, can you let everybody know where to follow you and all that great stuff?
Well, we are on Instagram, whoever is out there that is on Instagram, at Kenny Metcalf as Elton. And Metcalf is spelled Metcalf. So at Kenny Metcalf as Elton. Or our website is kennymetcalfaselton.com. We're on Facebook, Kenny Metcalf as Elton. You can even just find my personal page, Kenny Metcalf, on Facebook. But we're out there, and I touch lives everywhere I go, and sometimes I play in places that I'd much rather not play sometimes. But you walk through every door.
There's a reason.
You walk through those doors because there's always somebody there that God's wanted to touch their heart. And I can sing, I can play chopsticks and God could touch somebody's life. I can play Rocket Man and somebody can, their life can touch, because it's who God wants to touch. He's the one that's doing anything. I a lot of the times, I'm on stage and I'm playing and I don't feel anything.
Right.
But I'm trying to portray and bring an era back, and that put a smile on somebody's face. But they come up and they're like, I don't know why I'm crying right now. You just touched a nerve in my life, and you brought back memories that were fabulous in my life, and it brought an emotion. But I think it's deeper than that. And so I leave that between God and them, because He knows who He draws. So
well put. So well put.
Amen.
Kenny, can you stay with us as we wrap it up?
Sure.
All right. Take it, DH.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for another episode of DND Dynamite 80s. Kenny, congratulations or condolences, whichever way you want to look at it, because you're now part of the DND family. So it's up to you which way you want to take that. But thank you so much for being on tonight. And Brady, brother, thank you for being on. You guys, this is
Brady. Follow Brady Weldon. He is the rock and roll reverend. Yes. And he is fantastic.
There's two of us.
The rock and roll rev and the rock and roll.
And the rock and rev back when
rock and rev and the rock.
That's right.
That's right. So Brady is a brother of ours as well. And we appreciate him coming on and doing this gig with us.
I just want to say thank you for having me on here. This is such a confirmation, Kenny. I hope sometime we can have a cup of coffee, or I can book you in Nashville, because
bring me out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's already in the works right now. But I spent over, like I told you before we went on the air, over 30 years on the road as an evangelist. I still am. But I sang in 80s bands back in the 80s. And about 30-something years later, have gotten back into singing in 80s bands. One of the greatest things that happens to me, and you just alluded to it, you're the first person that has ever walked a path that I even can relate to, that, and that is when people leave. I'm probably the only human being in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt right here in Tennessee that I sang Amazing Grace and I'll Fly Away a cappella and went straight into smoking in the boys' room. And when people leave, they say this, and tell me if this is, and I'm sorry, guys, I just want to ask one more question.
That's okay.
When people leave, they will come by us and they will say, I don't know what it is. I feel like I've been in church tonight. You get that, I'm sure.
I'll never use those words, but where they don't know why they're feeling like they're feeling, and they're blessed. Or the last 5 shows, I'm not kidding. After the shows, I have people come in, and after I share my word and I play your song to close, and they will come up and they will say, that is exactly what I needed to hear. I'm going through this, and the doctors diagnosed me with this, and some of them, I'll just put my hands on them and I'll just pray for them. And they let me. And it's like, it says, okay, if I pray for you, and I don't make a big deal of it in front of people. I'm real quiet, put my hands on them. And it's simple to the point. God, you know what they need, and that, touch their life right now. And I believe it. And then I'll look at them and I'll just say, do you receive it? Do you want it? And they go, yeah. I go, there it is.
Wow.
And let God do it. It's
so powerful. So powerful.
The only other thing I would say, the only other thing that I would say is, I want to know who your costume designer is, because those are spot on Elton John outfits. I have never seen anything so close to the original as what you wear. It's incredible. Incredible.
Thank you. Well, I bling all my own costumes. I have a girl that she is my seamstress for the band, and she cuts all the costumes and sews them for me. But I'll
what
go
a
out
talent!
I'll go pick all the material, and then I'll bring them back, and she'll cut them. But I mean, if there's rhinestones and stuff like that, I do all the blinging because I grew up in a sign shop as a kid.
Wow!
So
awesome.
I make them. You can
that
find pictures of me as the pinball wizard, and I'm wearing the giant boots. I fabricated those and the glass frames. So I mean, it's like all the things that I learned as a kid, I apply into this show now. Junior high, my teacher said, gave us a little piece of paper, said, put 3 things down you want to do when you grow older, to make a living. I said, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a singer, musician, or I want to be something that has to do with arts and crafts. And the teacher said, all those things are fine, but none of those are practical. And it's like, that is everything that I do right now.
Wow.
I love it.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, though. Yeah, hang in there with us as we close it out.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, that's going to do it for another episode of DND Dynamite 80s. We'd like to thank Kenny and Brady for joining us tonight. Guys, what
a fun time.
This is probably
a great time.
My favorite show that I think we've done. And that's
got to be up there, brother.
We've done some great shows with Brady and with the Roy Band and all.
Sure.
But I think this show is right up there. I mean, it's just, being able to bring the aspects of faith into this show with you guys has just been amazing tonight.
It has been very powerful.
So absolutely. I appreciate y'all both sharing tonight. So that's just been amazing. And
absolutely.
And Kenny, just to I'll do this real quick, DC, and then I'll close out. My journey to become a teacher, I was in industry for years in leadership, and I've been in education 10 years now, and it all started with a simple prayer. Something was pulling me, and I just said exactly what you said tonight: God, let your will be done. And if you'd have told me at that point I'd have been in education, no way. But it was really amazing because I started out and I was like, I don't even know where to start. I get a phone call from Grand Canyon University, a Christian school, about going back to college. And that started my path. And every roadblock that's come along the way, he's just removed it. And it's like, all I can say is let his will continue to be done. So your testimony just reaffirms that. So thank you both for that. But folks, as we finish off, remember, you can find us on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, on our website, also on Canyon Star TV. We're a member of their family. But as I finish off, before I throw it over to DC for our sponsors and all, as I always close out, remember, it doesn't cost anything extra to be kind. So always be kind to each other. DC?
Amen, brother. Amen. All right, let's get those sponsors real quick.
Let's do it.
DND Dynamite 80s would like to thank their sponsors, Hudson's Flags and More, Nesting Project of Smyrna, Tennessee, PJG Marketing, Totally Cool 80s, Charlie Bubbles Cares for Kids, Jackie's Creations on Facebook, Riley Rhodes Art Designs at RileyRhodes.art on Instagram, and the Magic Yarn Project. You can find all these great folks online.
You most certainly do.
Yes.
So check them out.
Folks, and I'm going to ask, if you have it on your heart that you want to help an organization out, there's 2 organizations that we have the privilege of being part of their family and helping support. And one of them is the Magic Yarn Project. And what these folks do, it's all volunteers across the nation. They create headwear like princes and superheroes and all of that, and they donate them to children that are battling cancer. And that makes such a huge difference for those kids and those families. So if you find it in your heart, help support them. Also, Charlie Bubbles Cares for Kids, and our buddy Paul Carafotis, the Vooch. What they do is if you make a donation, they provide books for young kids that may not be able to afford books normally. And literacy is a major part of education. And we understand as educators, it's very important to start reading early. So they also have another project. DC, you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Very quickly. There was a family that got in touch with Paul that lost their infant daughter to a heart condition and reached out to him about writing a book about her, children's book. And he did that. He said it was a struggle, but he did it. And he wants to get that thing published. And publishing rights is very, very expensive. So he's looking for donations there at Charlie Bubbles Cares for Kids to get that thing published. So I know the Vooch will be able to get that done, and we want to use our platform to get that word out for anybody that would like to try to donate to help that take place. We would appreciate it, and they would too, of course. Next week we have Daryl Vidal. Daryl's going to join us for the second time. We've had him on before.
Yes.
He's an actor, producer, martial artist, author. We're going to talk about his new book that he's got out. But you would know Daryl. He was in the original Karate Kid movie. He fought Johnny Lawrence in the semifinals. So that was Daryl Vidal, and they used his name was up on the board. They used his own original name. And he also was Mr. Miyagi on doing the crane technique on the beach. That was actually Daryl that did that.
Yeah.
In that scene. So there you go. So he was also in the Cobra Kai series as a judge. So anyway, Daryl's a great guy, and he's going to be on next week with us. Kenny will know this gentleman. On July 2nd, we have Adam Shapiro of the Billy Nation Tribute, the Billy Joel Tribute. He will join us. So we'll catch up with Adam.
I think I'm definitely losing that week.
So it's I set that up, didn't I? I may have set that up.
I see what you did there.
So once again, fellas, it's been a pleasure. It's been a thrill, and just very, very got a lot out of it. I really did. So we appreciate all of you taking time with us, and it was a special time. Mm-hmm. So for DH, for Brady, for Kenny, this is DC. DC always leads us out by saying, keep playing those 80s and 70s and 60s and whatever decade of music you love. Just keep playing that music, my friends, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, folks.